Good evening, everyone, and
Sure.
I'd like to call to order
I remember
the
where it went.
Safety, Health, and Service Committee meeting. It's 7:01, and the purpose, back up here. Committee members are Mr. Pace and Ms. May, and Ms. May is absent this evening, and the alternate is Mrs. Ramos. The purpose of the meeting is to review Ordinance 2, 2023, and proposed Ordinance 4, 2023. I'd like to begin with Ordinance 2. And I'll read here for just a moment. An ordinance by the council of the ordinance by the council of the city of New Philadelphia to adopt a new section in the city's current ordinances regarding loitering and declaring an emergency. This specifically addresses, and I believe everyone has a copy of the ordinance, but it specifically addresses breach of the peace, obstructing free passage of pedestrians or vehicles, obstructing, molesting, or physically interfering with any person engaging in conduct which creates an unreasonable risk of physical harm to persons or property. This is an item that was requested by the Public Safety Director, and we're getting to it finally.
Oh, you can't shut that door.
Are there any questions of the committee?
He doesn't know.
It's not
Can't
yet.
shut the door.
It's not yet on.
I don't have any questions. Questions,
Not on this. I asked them last meeting and you guys answered them.
Okay. Does any member of the council or administration have any questions? Okay. I would make a motion to adopt ordinance 2, 2023, to put it on tonight's agenda for first reading, and that it have 3 readings. Is there a second?
I'll
Ms.
second
Ramos?
that.
Thank you. And we'll vote. Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Ramos?
Yes.
And I would vote yes. And it'll be put on tonight's agenda. Ordinance 4, and the fire chief and the director of public safety are both here and can answer any questions that you might have. I don't know what happened to the chief.
He was
In any case, this is repealing a portion of the ambulance personnel requirements that had been previously created. We have a civil service exam, entrance exam for new firefighting personnel on March the 21st. So this is something that needs to be passed tonight. The primary change from the previous ordinance is the requirement for 12 months, where a new employee would only have 12 months to obtain their paramedic certification, and it adds firefighter 2 and paramedic certifications, and now it moves to 24 months. That's the primary change. Are there any questions?
Can you say that again? It adds a requirement?
Well, it's actually opening the door. Right now, a new employee only has 12 months to obtain their paramedic certifications. This would extend that to 24. In some cases, it's very difficult for an employee to work their normal shift with the fire department and take care of their home life. And that being the case, the chief has recommended that that be altered or changed to 24 months, which makes it easier for an employee to obtain their paramedic certification. It also makes it easier for us to retain employees rather than them getting certified and moving to another department.
So for 2 years, a person could potentially not have their EMT
No, they would have their EMT,
or the
Not their-
firefighter,
they would not have their paramedicine
paramedic, okay. For 2 years.
for 2 years. They would be working on it, moving through that process, but they would not have that certification. They could still work as an emergency medical technician.
So I guess I would, I understand the time frame to expand that, but how does that benefit the city having a lower qualified person on for a longer period of time?
Mr. Popham or Chief Perry?
First off, it basically expands the pool of people that we have that want to get a job. Someone that would want to become a firefighter medic, and they're only partially through like their firefighter training. This gives them the time to finish what is required. And then the thing that's even harder is to then get the paramedic, which is almost a year of classwork that they have to do on top of that. So, I mean, we did this once before, not very long ago, and made it 12 months, and it's not enough. I mean, we need that to, in order us to get more potential candidates, we need to, in the beginning, to lessen our requirements. Not that, they'll have the full requirements, we're just giving them a longer time to get that.
Initially, they were required to be a certified paramedic for employment. And then, I'm not sure exactly how long ago it was,
Yeah, then we did a year, and
but
then
we altered that to reflect 12 months. And now we're finding out that that's not working, and they're wanting to move that to 24 months now.
Chief, the paramedic class, that's usually in the evenings, isn't it? Almost every day of the week?
They actually have day classes in the evening. Most of the time, the day classes are folks that are doing it full-time, that
Right.
they're in school basically full-time. And then the evening class is for those who have day jobs and they do this, in the evenings.
it's actually a college course now that they have to take to get
So-
it, where years ago they didn't have to.
If they're hired as an EMT, do they still, on a normal call when the ambulance goes out, would that EMT be on with the paramedic? Would there be two paramedics or?
Yeah, so we run a three-man medic, a three-person medic, I should say. Everybody, including me, all of us have our paramedic certifications. We're in a race to hire people. We're in competition with other departments. And an example, City of Akron just implemented, their new hires have to have zero training whatsoever. They hire you, they start you out at $60,000 a year, and they pay for your training your entire time. Akron's much larger, it has a lot more people working, they have about 450 people working, way different than us. But that's the kind of thing we're competing with for employees, and the pool's very small to begin with. So what we're trying to do is increase the candidates that can take the test. Our standard is not any different whatsoever at the end of that 2 years. They have to obtain and maintain that certification at their own expense by the second year. But what it does allow us is that person that maybe say they have a full-time job and another career, and they're on a volunteer department where they have their 36-hour volunteer firefighter, and they have their EMT basic, but they can't really quit their job to go someplace else, or it would be a huge risk to quit their job, especially if they had a family, and in hopes that they're going to score high on that test and be hired at our fire department. So it's increasing our pool of candidates to take the test.
Things have changed over the years. 20 years ago, you used to get 30 to 60 people show up to take a civil service test. Now we're hard pressed to get 10. And then out of those 10, by the time they start going through the process, you basically, if we're lucky, end up with 2 or 3 candidates out of the 10. And that's police and fire. It's, whatever, things have changed. And even though we may not be able to figure what some of those things are, it used to be, people were knocking at the door to get the job. And now today, we almost want to give it away and can't get anybody to come knock on the door. So we need to broaden and open it up to at least so we can compete a little bit. And there's still, like Jim said, with Akron and the bigger cities, we can't compete. And that's what we found out when we hired all the youngsters for the SAFER grant. They got on, they got some experience, and a lot of them, they still had their fielders out there. And the cities that pay more and are not as busy as we are, that's where they went. And I think that's going to be more the trend than the other way from here on out. I don't see it changing.
Chief, is it safe to say that a basic paramedic program is 900 or more hours of classroom time typically?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and trying to do that part-time
As long
in a
as it's
year
possible.
is fairly difficult?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. I thought that was the hour requirement.
absolutely.
Ms. Ramos?
So, a couple more questions. So of course, obviously, I would be totally against hiring people with 0 experience and education, training. But my question is this, okay, so it's not really a question of the availability of classes. What I'm hearing is it's somebody that doesn't necessarily work for us, and they're working another job, trying to take classes, but we might potentially be willing or want to recruit them, so we want to make it easier for them to obtain this training so that we can recruit them.
Well, it's hard to recruit when it's based off of a civil service test. But at
Right,
least,
they have to take that.
yes. But they still, in the long run, is that it gives them a job where they can be paid, but yet, to help us, they're going to school, and then at the end of their schooling, then, we actually have a fully trained firefighter paramedic. Once again, it's just different than it used to be.
Right. So would 18 months be enough?
We discussed that at length and decided on 2 years. And I'm certain this is not going to be the last time that either I or the person that replaces me comes to council and says, we need to change this again.
I was going to say,
This is
you'll be
going to
back, you'll be
really-
asking for the 3 years.
Well, so in 2019 is when we changed it from having to have your paramedic card and your 240 to even take the test to, we changed it to the level 2, and you had to have your basic EMT, but you had a year to get your paramedic certification. And like Steve just said, that being said, you have to be in paramedic school even at that point. You know, you have to already be in the program to finish that in a year. So this is just another attempt to try to broaden that a little bit to be more attractive to people that want to get into the fire service. And like I said, the person that has a job, maybe say in a factory, and is on a volunteer department, and has a family, and has half of their training or part of their training, but they really want to do this full time, it's almost impossible right now for them to do that, other than a leap of faith. I'm going to quit my job and hopefully I have enough money in savings to take care of my family and go for it. And then if I don't score high enough on the civil service test and get hired there, what did I do? You know, I'm kind of hanging out there without a job. So this kind of broadens that pool of possibilities for folks that are in that situation as well.
Any other questions? Any questions from council or administration?
Chief, what can that individual not do during that 2 years?
The only thing they can't do is function as a paramedic. They can function to the basic EMT level, but there's already 2 other paramedics on the ambulance with
That's
them.
what I mean, so they're going out every time anyways, right? It's not like they're sitting in the shop.
No, they're not sitting on the bench.
There you go.
They're
That's all I got,
employees
Chief.
plugged in just like the rest. And I'll tell you too, I think there's another good part about that. We're training our own.
Right.
We're training them the way we want them to learn our system, you know, and that's not a bad thing sometimes.
Right. Thanks, Chief.
Good question, thanks.
Are there any other questions? Is there any action to be taken by the committee tonight?
I'll make a motion to add ordinance number 4, 2023 to tonight's agenda, pass on first reading.
And is there a second?
Can I ask a question? Why does it have to be passed tonight?
We're doing a civil service test next month, and we would like for these rules to be in place so we can advertise as such.
Can it go 2 readings?
No, it can't because of the time frame. Since the civil service exam has already been they've started advertising, and they have to give a 30-day notice. And we're right up against that clock.
There could be multiple applicants that are waiting for that leeway of 24 months.
I mean, otherwise,
Even if
we're
they
gonna
want to
have
add,
to.
if they want to take the civil service test.
Otherwise, we're gonna have to advertise it as the way the current ordinance is. That's the only reason.
Okay, I would second. And let's vote. Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
And I would vote yes also. Is there anything else to come before the committee this evening? We will adjourn at 7:19.
I'm up.
You need a
Do
motion,
this
Dean.
myself.
There it is.
Motion to adjourn your meeting?
I just made it.
He made it himself. He's taking charge. Taking charge.
Yes, he's got family members
Yeah,
here.
bring them up.
That's all right.
We didn't? I thought we did. I had COVID whenever they were going to do ours.
I, Steve Griffith,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of councilman
of councilman
for Ward 4
for Ward 4
for the city of New Philadelphia, Ohio,
for the city of New Philadelphia, Ohio,
for the unexpired term
for the unexpired term
commencing February 13th, 2023,
commencing February 13th, 2023,
and ending
and ending
December 31st, 2025.
December 31st, 2025.
Congratulations, Councilman.
Thank you. Very good.
You sign there and fill in the rest. Oops.
I got some good pictures, I'm gonna post them.
When you get done tonight, I got a key and a thing you sign for after. Thank you. Good. Good evening. Welcome to the Philadelphia City Council meeting, and I'd like to open with prayer. Father, we're just thankful for this day, a beautiful day that you've made here in February, and it's just so nice to be out and about. Father, we also count it a privilege to meet here tonight as council to serve the citizens of New Philadelphia. We just pray your guiding hand upon our decision making here this evening. Father, we're thankful for Mr. Rippeth, who is our new city council member. We just thank you for his willingness to serve the citizens of New Philadelphia. Father, we continue to pray for our firemen, our police officers. We pray for their health and their safety. We also pray for all the citizens here in New Philadelphia. And we just give you all the praise. Amen. Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Present.
Mr. Lanzer.
Here.
Mrs. May. Mr. Pace.
Here.
Mrs. Ramos.
Here.
Mr. Ricklick.
Present.
Mr. Rippeth.
Present.
All right. Let it be known that Mrs. May has been excused from our meeting this evening. Agenda, everybody's had a chance to review the agenda for this evening. Are there any additions to the agenda?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Holland.
I'd like to add ordinance 2, 2023 to tonight's agenda for 3 readings, and ordinance 4, 2023 to tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second? Mr. Pace, thank you. And discussion by council, administration, roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
Are there any other additions to the agenda tonight? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda with our additions.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Alonso. Need a second?
I'll
Mrs.
second.
Ramos, thank you. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Minutes, everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from our last council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve. Mrs. Ramos, thank you. Need a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Pace, thank you. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Point of order.
Yes.
I don't believe Mr. Pace was present for the meetings.
Which one?
Last one?
I'm here.
I don't, clarify what your point of order is.
I'll rescind that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. All right, we'll move on to,
We got to keep on.
Oh, I.
Finish your roll.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Rippeth.
I will abstain.
All right, thank you. Correspondence, Ms. Courtright.
To Council Clerk from Jen Bogger with the Ohio Ethics Commission dated January 31st, 2023. This is the annual reminder for council and administration to turn in their financial disclosure statements for the year, as well as a request for an updated list of council and administration. I forwarded the reminder to all members of council and administration. To council and administration, Fire Chief Parrish and Police Chief Goodwin dated January 30th, 2023. This is an email titled Towpath Trail Public Forum Draft Presentation and Boards. And that was from Mayor Day. To Council Clerk from Treasurer Gerber dated January 31st, 2023. This is the City of New Philadelphia January 2023 deposits to the general account and the January 2023 investment and savings report. To Council and Administration from Administrative Assistant to the Mayor Jamie Bailey dated January 31st, 2023. This is the Mayor's month-end report for the month of January. To council and administration from Auditor Gundy dated February 1st, 2023. This is an email titled Income Tax Distribution for 2023. To council and administration from the Auditor's Administrative Assistant Heather Denham dated February 2nd, 2023. This is the January month-end reports. To Councilman Holland from President Kemp dated February 11th, 2023. This is an email titled, Please assign to Dean's Committee with Ordinance 4, 2023 as the attachment. To Council and Administration from Municipal Court Administrator Judy Ziegel dated February 13th, 2023. This is the 2022 New Philadelphia Municipal Court Annual Report. And to Council and Administration from Mayor Day dated February 13th, 2023. This is the Mayor's Report. And that concludes correspondence for this evening, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Ms. Courtwright. All right, we'll move into our administrative reports. First up, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members, fellow administrators, and guests. A couple things I want to highlight from the report that I sent you earlier today. On February 6th, I joined members of the county's Economic Development and Finance Alliance, otherwise known as the Port Authority, and representatives of American Structure Point Incorporated on a tour of the Joy or Howden Buffalo redevelopment property on South Broadway. The EDFA invited the Cleveland architecture and engineering firm to visit the site to better understand its redevelopment opportunities. American Structure Point will now assist the EDFA in marketing the property. And we had a very successful meeting here at 6 o'clock on the Towpath Trail. We'll give you a summary on that here shortly. But I also want to remind you about another meeting, public forum. It's coming up on Wednesday here in Council Chambers at 6 p.m. Compass Point Planning will be here to present findings of its recent public survey. The survey will be asking residents of businesses, or the survey did ask residents of businesses, their opinions of the city's current zoning code and make suggestions on improvements that could be made. Compass Point President Wendy Moeller will be here on Wednesday to discuss that and also what's been learned from her audit of the city's code. So I'd like to see as many people possible turn up here on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Now I'd like to turn over time to Dan Rice from the Ohio and Erie Canal Coalition and Ryan Smalley from Envision to summarize the meeting we had at 6 o'clock today on the Towpath Trail. Gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Day, members of the administration, President Kemp, members of council. Thank you very much for having us back. It's very exciting to be here with you, especially in person, to give you an update on the proposed design route for the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail. As many of you folks are aware, this is something we've been working on for actually decades. We are really at an exciting moment here because partnering with the city of New Philadelphia under Mayor Day's leadership, we hired Envision to actually help us to identify the most safest and most efficient route of the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail coming from the city of Dover down to the southern gateway at Waterworks Park. And we are really, really excited to share with you this brief update. As the mayor said, we just had a very successful public meeting. About 60 people were here to hear the update. And we're just really excited because 90 miles of the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail are completed. The southernmost connection is really at Zorville, and another 4 miles are actually under design and construction in 2023 and 2024. So we're getting really, really close. And we have about 2.5 million hikers and bicyclists who are eager to come to New Philadelphia to start their adventure, maybe go further north. We've had a lot of residents in the city of New Philadelphia who like to utilize the Towpath Trail here in the city of New Philadelphia and not have to drive to the north. And so we want to make sure that we are part of this economic boom that will actually result because of the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail. And so we've actually been able to document about $400 million of economic impact because of the Towpath Trail. And we want to make sure that New Philadelphia benefits from that as well. So that's just kind of the brief update. I'm going to turn over to Ryan, who's going to kind of walk you through some of the concepts and just to kind of emphasize that this is our best guess. Nothing's set in stone here. We're looking at the safest, most efficient options, and we're going to be using the information from our public meeting this evening to further inform this process. So Ryan?
Thanks, Dan. As Dan said, I'm Ryan Smalley with Envision. I'm not going to go through the entire 20-minute presentation again for the people that were sitting here and heard it an hour ago. But I'll hit the high points. As Dan said, we just had a really successful public meeting, had a lot of interest in what we're doing. what we're trying to do, I guess, through the city of New Philadelphia. For the past 6 to 8 months, we've been tasked with sort of looking at the western side of the city of New Philadelphia and trying to find a way, the best way, to connect Waterworks Park with eventually the city of Dover to the north. There is a portion of the trail route along the Tuscarawas River where the Great All property is that is already, there's already an easement in place, and a trail will be getting constructed there very soon. So our marching orders were to try to find a way to connect that north. So we looked at a lot of different options, looked at a lot of different roadway corridors throughout the city to try to find a route that was least impactful, most cost effective, and safest way to get a 8 or 80-year-old all the way from Waterworks Park into Dover. So we've been meeting with stakeholders, we just met with the public, and the route that we that we kind of came up with was a route that ran along the Tuscarawas River up to Front Avenue, taking Front eastward to 7th Street, taking 7th north, and eventually hitting Union and taking that up into Dover. That route was sort of and then we had a couple options that we showed the public here, a couple of typical section options, looking at the roadway, cutting it in half, standing there looking at it, what could we do with this roadway within the right-of-way in most cases that could improve the corridor and allow bicycle and pedestrian access. In a lot of instances, we looked at buffered bike lanes, where we have the car travel in the middle, we have a buffer, a painted or raised curb buffer, and then the biking facilities. In a lot of cases, particularly on 7th and Union, all this can be done within the curb-to-curb existing pavement footprint. That means we don't have to dig up tree lawns or ask for easements. All this can be done within that footprint, which is extremely cost-effective compared to building a 10-foot wide trail. Along front, there are some tight areas where we would need to be right adjacent to the roadway, but for the most part, this is an improvement that can be done within the public right-of-way. So we showed a couple different options, the buffered bike lane that I mentioned, and then the proposed cycle track, which is essentially a trail within the curb-to-curb pavement. There would be your back and forth traffic, a buffer again, and then your back and forth trail traffic within that the existing curb-to-curb width. So that's what we presented the public with, and we gave them some time to come up to. We had 3 boards, a board for each one of the street corridors, Union, 7th, and Front, and had them come up and provide some comments via Post-it notes and talk to us and ask us questions that they might not felt comfortable with in a large group. So that's where we're kind of at, and going forward, we're looking to sort of put a button on this plan, come up with a cost for a preferred alternative route, and we'll be back to present that information when that makes sense.
All right.
Do you have any questions that the council may have?
Yeah, anybody have any questions? Guys must have done a great job.
Yeah.
Well, we're grateful for your leadership and your support because, as you know, this was a dream of Congressman Ralph Regulo in the 1960s to complete the Highway Canal Towpath Trail. And we want to make sure that we are not the city that doesn't make that completion. And so between the Philadelphia Dover and the city, the Tuscarawas County Park Department, we're making great progress. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you, Mayor Day, for your leadership.
You're right.
We will appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. President, I'd like to give time to Tom Barbizo of the Quaker Digital Academy. He has a presentation to make to council.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
as Mayor Day said, my name is Tom Farfizo. I'm here representing Quaker Digital Educational Foundation and also representing QDA and QPA for Dr. Richard Grady. I'm actually the marketing and fundraising arm of the Educational Foundation. Thank you, Mayor Day, Service Director, Mr. McAbeer, Law Director, Mr. Fate, and Council President, Mr. Kemp, and esteemed council members. Due to your foresight, I'm back again on an annual basis, and I have a couple of checks tonight. In a few minutes, we'll get to those, but.
You're here.
Yeah. But anyway, since we've started the program, and I worked with Law Director Fate, we've issued, actually, you'll see in our annual report on page 9, it says we've, when we went to print, we would have issued $13,000 to date in scholarships. Unfortunately, one of the students who was eligible for $2,000 elected not to take the money, and I can't answer why. I'm just telling you, she decided she wasn't going to take the money. So we've issued $11,000 in scholarship money since we started the program. This year, we've set aside $3,000. We're going to give out 3 $1,000 scholarships to eligible students from QDA. To date, we've paid the city in excess of $21,000, and tonight I will let Mayor Day tell you what these 2 checks are for in here. And by the way, I always do 2 checks because one is for the airport windows, and the other one is for the sanitation trucks. So when you see the sanitation trucks driving around in New Philly with the 4x8 signs on, there's money being generated both for the city and for the scholarships and the windows down at the airport also. Mayor Day?
For the sanitation truck ads, the city is receiving $2,400. And for the airport windows, the city is receiving $3,360.
Which comes to a total of $5,760, which brings the total the city's received to date $26,760. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very
I'll
good.
give these to the auditor.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Ramos.
Okay, Mr.
Thank
President?
you, Mayor Day.
Yes, question?
I just want to clarify the meeting time on Wednesday. You said 6 and 7, but it's 7.
It's 7 PM.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
7 PM on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Any questions? That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tom, for your, anytime you can bring money, you can keep coming back, so.
You're welcome back.
You're welcome back.
Only next year.
All right. Me too.
Maybe a little more.
All right.
That's what we like to hear.
All right, but keep moving on. Service Director, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to give an update. I spoke about this before, about the water line underneath Route 250. Last week, we were granted the right-of-way through ODOT, so that paperwork is signed, so we'll be able to move forward with that. We got the PTI study okayed by Prepare to Install through the EPA. It got returned last week to us also. So we will go out to bid in March. I will update council at that time. The engineer's estimate was $329,717 for that. So that will get done, and that was put into this year's budget. I believe it, I spoke before about the, it's imperative that that does get fixed. I believe I reported that it's had 2 leaks on it in the last few years, about 3.5 years. And that's one of the main feeders for the south side. And typically when it goes down, everybody knows it until we get valves shut off and then reroute it from just one other spot. So again, we'll bid that out in March. Once that's bid out and hire the contractor, I will report back to council. That's the end of my report.
All right, any questions for Mr. McAbeer? Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, move on to Safety Director, Mr. Popham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. This afternoon, the mayor swore in the police department, Officer Jenna Dugan, and she comes to us from Suma Health. She was a sergeant on their police department there. And she is replacing K-9 Officer Mike Pearch that resigned due to health reasons a few months ago. And if everything goes right, in March sometime, we should start the new K-9 going to school. So things are moving forward. And don't hold me to the date, I'm not 100% sure my noodle's working right here this evening. But we also received notice that School Resource Officer Jen Horner is going to retire, and I believe it's like the 15th of May. So we'll be losing her, and of course, we're in the process still of looking for someone to now replace her. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Mr. Popham? All right, move on. Auditors report, Mrs. Gundy.
I have no report this evening.
All right.
Thank you.
Move on to the treasurer's report, Mr. Gerber.
No report this evening.
All right, thank you. Move on to the law director, Mr. Pate.
No report this evening.
Whoa.
Because I wore a suit and took a stand.
All right, we'll move on to our board commission reports. Planning Commission, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Commission will meet here in Council's chambers tomorrow afternoon at 1. We will be discussing the Towpath Trail presentation and also the zoning study that we'll learn more about on Wednesday, and any other matters that come before the commission.
All right, any questions, council? All right, not, we'll move on to Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. With no variance to be heard, variance request to be heard tomorrow night at 5 p.m., the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting has been canceled.
All right, move on to Airport Commission, Mr. Lancer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Normally, the Airport Commission would meet tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. here in council chambers, but due to quorum issues, we rescheduled for February 21st at 6 p.m. here in council chambers.
Okay. All right, move on to Park Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right, move on to the Health Board, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The New Philadelphia City Health Board met Wednesday, February the 8th here in council chambers. And the items primarily discussed were, one, in May, the White House will be terminating the COVID-19 pandemic across the United States. As a result of that, the city will no longer have the free COVID testing kits and will also not be giving the free vaccine injections. So everyone needs to get out. If you don't have them, get them. We have plenty of testing kits available here at the health department. If you just stop in, they'd be glad to give them to you. And secondly, a number of citations have been issued recently as a result of violations with environmental health code violations across the city. The health department's been working very diligently to make certain that all of our restaurants meet the minimum requirements for restaurant operation. And third, the City Health Department is continuing to work on their accreditation. The accreditation board, we're waiting for them to give us a date when they will do a site visit here in the health department and have further discussions with our Commissioner of Health and staff. And it looks like it's going to be 12 months yet before we actually receive accreditation based on experiences of the accreditation board. That concludes my report for this evening.
All right. Any questions for the Health Board?
Thank you, Mr. President. No formal report, but I do want to report from last council meeting. Did sit down with the mayor and service director, mayor and auditor, to discuss the budget adjustment needed to fix the items that Mrs. Gundy had. I will be having a meeting on February 27th at 7 PM with those recommendations and any legislation that would need to be presented. We'll have those ready for the law director to have us proposed ordinances or resolutions at that time.
All right, any questions for Mr. Ricklick, Finance Committee? Now we'll move on to Public Works and Economic Development. Mr. Alonso.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right, we'll move on to Safety, Health, and Service. Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is not the Safety, Health, and Service Committee meeting, but to report on tonight's committee meeting, we met this evening here in council chambers at 7:01, and we discussed ordinances 2/2023 and ordinance 4/2023. After discussion on ordinance 2/2023, which addressed a new ordinance in the city's current ordinances to prohibit the obstruction of sidewalks, walkways, streets within the city of New Philadelphia. We had complaints from businesses throughout the community with their concerns about that, and the police department has also requested the changes in this particular ordinance. In ordinance 4/2023, it addressed the changes in fire department new personnel. Discussions with Chief Parrish and Director Popham had recommended, and it was approved. Both of these ordinances were recommended to be placed on tonight's agenda, and ordinance 4/2023 that it be passed tonight. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holland. Any questions? Now we'll move on to zoning and annexation. Mrs. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
All right, Mrs. May's not here tonight for a salary committee. We'll move on to this cemetery. Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right. And Mr. Ripper is our new chairman of the Contact and Special, so we won't have a report tonight, but.
No report, thank you, Mr. President.
We're glad you're here, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, visitors. Miss somebody?
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to visitors' comments. Floor is now open for visitor comments. Anyone wishing to address council should rise, state their name and address all comments to the chair. You will be given 5 minutes time limit to everybody wishing to speak tonight. Yeah, come right up to the podium there, sir. State your name and address.
My name is Chancellor Carr. Address is 315 6th Street Northeast, New Philadelphia, Ohio, 44663.
All right.
Local business owner and taxpayer. I'm here tonight because I do, through some legal misunderstandings, I have been evicted. I am currently homeless and have been living on the street for the past 3 or 4 weeks. I apologize for my appearance. Sleeping in your car, you really don't have access to a shower, so I don't really know what I'm doing here outside of looking for some type of relief to this homeless situation that I'm in, and so that's where we're at.
Have you been to the homeless, Friends of the Homeless here in New Philadelphia?
So I did give them a call to see if they had room, extra bed for myself. They did not. It was very cold out them nights, and I was seeking relief of that, and with no luck. I don't believe that is where I need relief, though. I mean, I've been staying in my car. I am looking for some type of legal counsel, somebody to help me navigate the complexities of the court system here in New Philadelphia. So I've been filing motions to, counteract my eviction of a home that I own. So I don't know how I was evicted. Like I said, it may have been a misunderstanding.
All right, Mr. Pate?
Have you contacted legal aid?
Yes, sir. I did discuss the situation with the gentleman there, and he said he didn't believe I had a case.
Okay.
I don't understand why, because, like I said, I own the property I was evicted from, and so I don't see how I don't have a case.
Because that's who I would recommend. That's really all they deal with is evictions. And
So, Mr. Chair, what are the recourse? At this point, I'm at the legal aid. I mean, there's really nowhere to go. But I would think the homeless, Mr. Parrish.
We can help them at the fire department. We'll have them contact Paula Lancaster, our community care coordinator, and she has a bunch of resources. We'll try and help them.
All right, thank you,
That's
Chief
helpful.
Parrish. Thank you. Anything else, sir? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address council this evening?
Would you just say?
I said, anyone else wishing to address council this evening?
He's coming.
Got some information for everybody, so I'm gonna pass out. I don't have enough copies for everybody, so you guys have to share real quick.
Could you tell us your name and everything?
Yeah, I will, I'm sorry.
We can share.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Sean Patterson. I live at 754 Wright Avenue Northwest. I'm a veteran of the United States Army of 8 years. I just wanted to come speak tonight and talk about the ministry that I have started for veterans that are struggling with post-traumatic stress. So myself as a veteran who has struggled with mental illness, with post-traumatic stress, and substance abuse. Through all that and having victory in Jesus Christ, God has put it on my heart to lead other veterans to Jesus Christ. And so with that, I have many goals with the ministry, which the ministry is called the Redeem 22. My goals are to establish a veteran support group, a Christ-centered veteran support group. I also am trying to start bring Honor Court to Tuscarawas County. For those of you that don't know what Honor Court is, it is a VTC, a Veteran Treatment Court. I have been learning from Stark County. They have one of the best Honor Court, one of the best veteran treatment courts in the country. I have made contacts in the leadership of that court system. The judge up there is Honorable Taryn Heath. The director is Michelle Hammers. I've actually sat down and had a meeting with Taryn Heath. She is open to coming down here with her and Michelle Hammers, the director of the Honor Court, to come down here to pitch it to Tuscarawas County. Moving on to one of my next goals is to bring a SAM Center type resource to Tuscarawas County. For those of you that don't know what a SAM Center is, it's Serving Area Military. The founder of the Stark County SAM Center is Brian Bowman. He established this through a nonprofit that was through a food bank at an American Legion in Massillon, and progressed it over the years and put it up, and now they provide veteran resources under one roof. They provide resource fairs for veterans at the Mass Air Museum, and so I've been put in connection with local veteran leaders such as Pat Walker, a Vietnam vet who runs I believe he's the vice president of the VBA, but he's been trying to do a lot of work in his years for veterans in the area. So the VFW has an established food pantry for veterans. So what my goal is to learn from and see how Brian got started with Stark County, and kind of learn from him, pick his brain, and see his blueprint to establish the SAM Center in Tuscarawas County. So my groups have already been established. So first goal is already complete. We are meeting the first and third Mondays of every month at 6:30 p.m. at the Nazarene Church. So those will begin March 6th. And so what you have in front of you is just to kind of, I know Tuscarawas County is a lot smaller, obviously, than Stark County. But if you look at the percentages on the back here, it gives an overview of our population, and so Stark County's population of adult veterans 18 years and plus is 291,602, and so this is their total adult population. The veteran population in Stark County is 24,053. Tuscarawas County's adult population is 70,952. This is according to the 2020 census. But if you look at the percentages, we're right behind Stark County. The main reason why I bring this up is I just believe that it's needed, because we're not too far behind Stark County as far as percentage-wise in veteran population. So I'm not really looking for anything other than just to let this be known, and just appreciate your support going forward with this ministry and the support of veterans in Tuscarawas County. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Any questions?
I don't have a question, Sean, but I just want to thank you for your service, and
Yes.
what you're doing here I think is great, so
Thank you.
you got my support.
Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other visitors wishing to address council? Now we'll move on to council comments. Any council members' comments this evening? Yes, Mr. Rickley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just passing on a message from a citizen. Last Thursday, I attended the call-in hours for Susan Hanhart Hoopengardner. At that time, her husband, John Hoopengardner, stopped me. It was a pretty large crowd. Everybody stopped me. He wanted to express to me his thanks to the New Philadelphia Fire Department. His wife collapsed during a breathing treatment at the house, and our fire department responded within 7 minutes, was at his house, working on his wife to help try to revive her. He was so appreciative. He was coming to tears. But what made most of it so important to him that Captain Bert Snyder took time with him to talk to him about everything. It was very emotional to me. I've become a good friend with John Hooper Gardner through Sacred Heart Church. And at that moment, that was the most important thing for him, to tell me his appreciation for his city and what they did for him at that time. So with that, Chief had Bert stop over here. Mr. Hooper Gardner, you comforted him very much. You made that situation the best you could make it. But those are the things nobody sees. So you need to be commended on that, Bert, because you made a difference on that night for him. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, very much appreciated, yes. Any other comments by council? All right, if not, we'll move into our legislative agenda. Ms. Courtwright.
Ordinance number 2, 2023, an ordinance by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to adopt a new section of the city's current ordinances regarding loitering and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Hearing none, it would be held for our next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Ordinance number 4, 2023, an ordinance to repeal codified ordinance 143.03, certification of ambulance personnel, and to enact new codified ordinance section 143.03, certification of fire department personnel, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight?
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr.
I would
Hall.
move that the rules be suspended on ordinance 4, 2023.
Mr. Ricklick.
I'll second.
All right. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick?
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer?
Yes.
Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Rippet?
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Now, Mr. Holland.
I would move, Mr. President, that ordinance 4, 2023 be adopted.
I have a second. Mr. Ricklick, thank you. In discussion by community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick?
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer?
Yes.
Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Rippet?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 4, 2023 has passed.
And that concludes legislation for the city of New
All right, thank you, Ms. Courtwright. Is there any unfinished old business needs to be brought before council tonight? Any new business that needs to be brought before council tonight? Just like to say, tomorrow's Valentine's Day, make sure we all, buy some roses or flowers for our spouses.
Chocolate, chocolate.
And chocolate, so,
More
a
chocolate.
motion for adjournment.
Mr. President, I would move that we adjourn this meeting of the New Philadelphia City Council.
All right, we adjourned at 8:13. Thank you, everyone.